Hi everybody. Today I'm going to talk you through section B, which is question 8 or 9 of the paper 2 GCSE English language by Edexcel. Okay, so here we've got the actual exam paper in front of us. This is a June 2017 one. And you can see here that it says, first of all, very, very importantly, answer one question. Okay, so do not answer both. You only need to answer one. All right, so you can have a quick look and decide which one you prefer to write about. The other thing is you should spend about 45 minutes on this section. Okay, this is 25% of your total marks for the GCSE exam, so you need to spend at least 45 minutes on this section. I recommend to my students that if they're very confident with transactional writing, they should even start with this to make sure they've got plenty of time to do it. Or maybe a better idea is to read the texts, do questions 1 to 6, so you've got a really good idea of the text, and then do the writing, because obviously the theme of the writing will be based on some of the things that you read in the text. So you can get ideas about vocabulary and ideas for content from the text. Okay. Um, then I would do the writing, and then at the end do 7A and 7B. So 7A and 7B are really, really important, so you do need to make sure you leave time for them. But if you run out of time, you're not losing as many marks as if you ran out of time for the writing. Okay, but obviously timing is really important. And in my summary video, which I'll be posting up later, it will help you talk through about ideas for timing. Okay, so we've got two choices here. As you can see, normally there'll be different formats. So here we've got an article at the top, question 8, and question 9, we've got a speech. Okay, so you might choose on the basis of whether you prefer writing articles or speeches, or you might choose on what the topic's about. Now, the good thing about this particular exam is it does actually give you some bullet points to choose from. So, sorry, to help you to plan. Okay, so again, a really good idea for a quick plan would be actually using these bullet points and then annotating around the bullet points things like ideas of language features you could use, any vocabulary you could use, any other ideas that you can add, and use these bullet points as a little plan. Okay. The other handy thing they've got here is they're actually reminding you about all the things that you need to that you're going to be marked on. So, for example, vocabulary. So that reminds you, or think of those good words that maybe you've memorized that you're going to try and to squeeze into your writing, those kind of impressive bits of vocabulary. Spelling, so it reminds you to maybe double check those words that you know you often get wrong. Punctuation, so maybe if I were you, I'd write out my semicolon, my colon, my exclamation mark, my question mark, etc., etc., and then almost like you can just tick them off after you've used them if you can. So try and use as many of them as possible. And then grammar. Okay, so I use that as a little way to make me remember, oh, I've got to do short and long sentences. Okay, maybe do a question in there as well. So I kind of use that as a little reminder of how I need to do different sentence lengths. Okay, so then you basically just need to I don't spend too long deciding, just quickly choose which one you want to do, and then spend about 5 minutes just making some notes, like annotating this as your plan. Now, you might want to do a separate plan on a bit of paper. Brilliant, that's fine. I find a lot of my students don't really like planning and find that really difficult and don't do it in the exam. So at the very least, use your bullet points and these as a reminder to plan a bit of vocabulary, etc., into there. Okay. Okay, so just a little bit more help here is what I always ask my students is to think about the path for each of these. So whichever one you decide to do, think about what's the purpose, the audience, and the format. Okay, so the format is what we were talking about already. Is it an article, like this top one's an article, or is it a speech, for example? So depending on which one you choose, you need to use different kind of presentational features. If you're using also organizational features, sorry, I mean, if you're also needing to think about the audience, so is it a specific audience? So here, for example, it says to your peers. So that would be, obviously you'll be using different language because you'll be talking to people in your same age group than if you were addressing, you know, a bunch of head teachers or something like that. Okay. If it doesn't say a specific audience, so for example, a magazine, blah, 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 just you still think about addressing the reader. So still thinking about using some direct address, maybe some rhetorical questions. So you've got that engagement with the audience, whatever you do. Okay. And then the purpose, well, that's thinking about, well, what is it? Are you persuading? Are you informing? Are you, is it entertaining? It might be a mixture of them. I would say most of these you're going to need a little bit of persuasion. So I think your daft forest features are always a good thing to try and put in, but maybe some of them might be a bit more descriptive or a bit more advice, or it might be a bit more informative, etc. Or if it's a magazine article, for example, you might be wanting to entertain a little bit because people aren't going to read a magazine article. That's really boring, are they? Okay. So let's have a little look at what else you need to include. So make sure that you include your daft forest features. You might have some little bit different mnemonic at your school, but just to run through those, so things like direct address, alliteration or anecdotes, facts, opinions, rhetorical questions, exaggeration, short sentences, tripling. Those are all good things to try to include if you can, to kind of show off to the examiner that you can use these language features, but obviously use them as appropriate. Don't just kind of go crazy in a way that doesn't seem very natural. A range of sentence lengths. So that's really important to have some longer sentences, maybe with some extra information within the commas, maybe with using some fancy punctuation like colons and semicolons, etc. And that brings us on to the next bit, is try to use a range of punctuation. So I'll show you in a minute some really top tips of how to just get in those fancy punctuation in a really sort of formulaic way, but that you can make sure that you always include them. Okay. Remember to use paragraphs. Okay. And better to have 2 short paragraphs than 2 long paragraphs. So if in doubt, start a new paragraph. Linking words are really important as well. So things like firstly, secondly, or my next point is, etc. Really, really useful. And then using appropriate features for the format. So if it's a letter, dear, Mr, blah, 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 dear Mrs, whoever. And then starting off, I am writing to you to blah, blah, blah. Okay, you don't need to do addresses and all that kind of stuff, but you do need to start off. And then also think about how you would finish. I'm looking forward to hearing from you, yours sincerely, or something like that. Okay, so make sure you finish it off is just as important as how you start. And if you run out of time, just do ... and still do the finish, because then at least you'll get the marks for the format, even if you don't get so many other content marks. Okay, article, maybe do a headline and underline it. And obviously, for an article, it's things like having an introductory paragraph, having a conclusion paragraph, having it structured in some way, and maybe trying to address the audience, which won't be obviously as specific, but still maybe address them by using you, etc. And then a speech, good morning, good afternoon, I'm here today to talk to you about, and at the end, something like, thanks for listening. Okay, so did you get the idea? So really think about what the format is and use those correct features, because that's going to help you to get marks. Okay, and this is my last top tip for the writing exam, is this is a really good way to get in those different types of sentences and punctuation. Okay, so the first one, let me tell you something really important, and then you've got the colon. Okay, so you could almost like memorize that as a phrase and try and get that into your transactional writing or something similar. So here you've got the direct address, and you've also got the colon, and then after that you can then put your sentence of whatever it is that's really important in that text. Okay, obviously you can adapt that to your own needs. Okay, another one that's really good to remember is a semicolon, which can be really tricky to remember how to use, but you can kind of remember some phrases like this. Some people agree, some disagree. Okay, so again, you can adapt that as you want. Some people like cheese, semicolon. Some people hate it. Okay, whatever your topic is. All right, so um, if you've got kind of two sides of an argument and then you write a little sentence on each and pop a semicolon in the middle. Okay. Another thing, this is how to show that you're good at using parenthetical commas, and also you're using some expert opinion, and also you're using speech. So this ticks all the boxes, also showing that you know how to use capital letters correctly. Just make up a name. Remember to capitalize it correctly. So Ms. Jones, comma, Managing Director of Tesco, comma. So obviously that bit there in the middle is your sort of extra information, because obviously Miss Jones revealed, it makes sense on its own. So you're showing that you know how to use those commas, and then you put whatever her revelation is in the middle there, and then you've used your speech marks correctly as well. Okay, so that's another little tip. And then of course you've got your questioning the reader. Would you like to know a secret? Okay, so again, you can adapt that to whatever is most appropriate to your writing. Okay, so I think those are really worth just memorizing, almost maybe adjusting and adapting to the needs of your particular piece of writing, but a little bit of a top tip there. Okay, so I'm just going to refresh on the things that you need to include, and good luck.